Muslim country. That is why my Quran was still there, and that is why I still was confused about the Bible, because it wasn't, by this point, it wasn't a matter of questions, or it wasn't a matter of, is the Bible really true, is the Bible really consistent, is the resurrection of Jesus really reliable, is Jesus who he said he was, were these scholars just making things up, is Paul who Paul was in the Bible in the New Testament, and it wasn't questions on hell or anything anymore. It was just, I was sitting there and I was like, I can't believe in this. I mean, I can't do this, because I was not born into a Christian family. I was meant to be a Muslim. I was born into a Muslim family. I was meant to follow Allah. I love the Ummah. I love Salat. Like, I loved everything about Islam. It was just so, I mean, it gave me a balance between being an Afghani and being an American. Being Muslim was my balance. I loved Islam. I mean, even to this day, I have such an attraction to it, and I have to remind myself that it is false and not true. And so I was looking at my Bible, and I was just, by this point, I was like, I can't believe in you. Like, you know, God, sorry. Like, I can't do this, because my parents are going to kill me. Like, my parents, what are they going to do? Like, I'm going to get beat for it. I'm going to get persecuted. I'm never going to get to marry a Muslim guy. And all these thoughts went through my head. And so Ramadan came around, and I was just like, I'm going to put the Bible aside. Like, I'm just going to devote myself to Allah this month. I'm just going to do what I need to do. Like, it was kind of almost like a last-ditch attempt, because I so desperately wanted to be Muslim. I so desperately wanted to believe in something that was a lie, because it gave me everything that I was set up for in life, everything that my parents wanted. It would make my, parents happy. It would make my brothers happy. And so I just tried to devote myself to Allah. I prayed way more than 5 times a day. I did every Fajr Salat and every Sunnah Salat. Like, I did every Fajr, Asr, Maghrib, Aisha. I did, the Fard ones and the Sunnah ones. I did everything that I can so that I could have a relationship with Allah. I was learning how to recite the Quran in Arabic. I was reading like Surah An-Nas and all these different things. And I was going to Muslim parties, and I was going to Muslim classes. I would go in Belief in Allah classes every Sunday night. I did everything that I could. I surrounded myself by the Muslim Ummah, and I even prayed at school. Like, I would go and do wudu in the girls' bathroom, and girls would be like, what are you doing, And I'd be like, this is just kind of what you do when you're Muslim. And so I would explain to them these things, and I would even pray Salat. Like, when my teacher was teaching, I would go in the back room and I would pray Salat. So I just tried so hard, to learn as much as I could about Islam. And I tried so hard to make it fit into my mindset, and to just say, no, this is the truth. But Eid al-Fitr came around, so everyone knows it's like the biggest Muslim holiday. It's one of the biggest. And we were celebrating the end of Ramadan, and we were at my aunt's house, and everyone was just praising me, like, oh, Negin, you did so well. We're so proud of you. We're so excited that you did so well, and you're praying all these things. We're so excited. You're becoming just this great Muslimah, this great Muslim woman. And I looked at them, and I'm like, oh, thank you, And so I was sitting there, and by this point, the spiritual battle was insane. I mean, it was insane, to the point where I would wake up in the middle of the night and ask myself, like, how come I don't know who God is? Like, how come I don't have a truth yet? Like, I've studied so hard. I've talked to so many people. I mean, I've snuck out to churches, and I went to mosques, and I just did Jummah prayer after Jummah prayer. And I was like, why don't I know this yet? Like, I talked to atheists, I talked to Buddhists, I talked to Hindus. I mean, I went and picked up every book that I can on all these religions, and I still don't have an answer. And so I was sitting there, and I was looking at my cousin's face, and I was looking at my aunt's faces and my brother's faces, and I was like, I do have an answer. I'm just denying the answer that I know to be true. By this point, I mean, of course, it has been revealed to me that Christianity is true. And I'm not just talking about an intellectual journey. While it was a huge intellectual journey, and I had tough theological questions that I had to ask myself, and theological barriers that I had to overcome, because there are theological barriers that you have to overcome when you're a Muslim and you already have a preconceived notion of what the Bible is. And so I had to go through those things, but it was ultimately the Holy Spirit and His interaction with me that made me see that this is consistent, this is true, like, this is the God who points out sin. You know, this is the God who calls it out. This is the God who gives answers to questions, real, life-changing answers. And so, it's ultimately your relationship with God's Spirit, and it's ultimately your relationship with God and how you pray. It has, an intellectual journey is important. Finding answers to your questions is important, but ultimately it is God who does the work and who works in your heart. And so I sat there and I was just like, I have nothing more to do. Like, I can't even study more. Like, I've prayed, I've cried my eyes out night after night. I mean, I cried during Ramadan more than like any other month, you know. And I don't want to believe in you. Lord, I don't want to believe in you, you know. So I look around, I look at my cousins' faces, and I look at my family's face, and I see my mom's face, and I'm just like, but none of them will accept me if I'm Christian. I mean, my brother will probably like beat the crap out of me, you know, and then my parents will get angry and lash out at me, and then I won't have like this Afghani culture that I love. I won't have all this food and I won't get to marry an Afghan man, and no one will talk to me anymore. And so I look at them and I'm like, I love them so much that I don't want them to forget about me. I don't want them to not talk to me anymore. But then I ask myself, well, what is real love? Like, what is true love? True love, it's wanting the best for the other person. It's completely selfless love. And that's the way marriages work. Marriages are selfless. When God sent Jesus here, it was a selfless act. It was an act for us, you know. And His glory. And so I just sat there and I was just like, if I truly love them, I would accept what is true so that one day they can see it through me and that they may accept it as well. There's no guarantee that my family or my cousins or my brothers will accept Jesus Christ. I had no guarantee at that point, but I knew that I could not let them live on into a belief system. I could not let people believe that I believed in Islam. I didn't. It just wasn't intellectually satisfying or spiritually satisfying, for that matter. And so I knew what I had to do. I had to accept Jesus. I knew what I had to do. And so I went home and I busted out my Quran. Instead of falling on my face and declaring that Jesus is Lord and that He came here and He died for us, instead of declaring the truth of the God of the Bible, instead of declaring Him as majestic and the creator of this universe, I went home and read my Quran. When I was so convicted of what I needed to do, I went home and read my Quran. So I was reading the Quran. I had read like more than I've ever read, from the chapters before Medina to the chapters after Medina. I just read so many surahs that night, more than I've ever read in my entire life. And I sat there and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, I can't believe I'm reading the Quran right now. It is empty. Like, I was looking for something. I was desperately looking for something in the Quran to say, hey Nagin, don't convert. Like, I was looking for something to tell me, like, stop, you know, like, Allah is Lord. And so I couldn't find it. There wasn't any substance in those verses. There's very little substance in the verses that are in the Quran, especially compared to the scripture that's in the Bible. So I push my Quran to the side and I pick up my Bible and I'm like, Jesus, like, I no longer believe that you were merely a prophet, but I believe that you are one in the Trinity, that you are one of the persons in the Trinity, and that you were sent here, and that you died for us so that we may be reconciled with God. And I said, you know, like, the God of the world lies within the Bible. I will deny myself, Lord. I will take up my cross. I will follow you. I know I will be persecuted, but I will follow you. And I said that to myself, like, on my bed. And it just was like so meaningless, because when actually living that out, when actually living out the words that I said, when I was trying to deny myself that no matter what the persecution came, I failed, and I failed miserably. And I made the cross look minute and just small and disgusting because of how badly I failed to glorify God and stick to my words of serving Him under the persecution. My first year of being a Christian was really hard. I loved God, I loved the gospel, I loved the cross. I mean, I loved learning more and more about Him and learning more and more about what life is as a steward of Christ. But it wasn't easy, especially with family and persecution. And my longing for Islam, it just never stopped. I mean, and I wouldn't long for Islam because I was like, I want to worship Allah, you know, I want to go. I mean, the Prophet Muhammad was this great guy. Those weren't the reasons why I longed for Islam. I longed for Islam because the people that I love are Muslim, because the traditions and cultures that I practice and love are Muslim. That is why I longed for Islam, not because I thought it was spiritually satisfying, not because I love to be like doing these ridiculous rituals and facing the east when I